Hello everyone, this is Ragu42 presenting you a new iron farm concept for Minecraft 1.8, which basically allows to stack villages infinitely. So what you see behind me is basically a demo setup for this contraption, and it currently features 128 villages stacked over 4 floors. And yeah, let's get cracking and see how this thingy is working. Okay, so let's have a look at the math behind this building. Now, I'll consider that we already have 2 existing villages, one at x equals 0, y equals 0, and c equals -1, and one at 0, -3, 0. So basically these are the 2 villages which will be closest to our newly created village, which will be centered around 0, 0, 0. So given we have these villages already existing and some that are further away, the first door we can create is at -65. So this will create a new village since it's more than 64 blocks away from the center of the next closest village. So what we can now is add a door at x equals -33, which is just slightly closer to our new village than to all the old villages. And after we add this one, the center, so the average in x, shifts a bit downwards, and we can actually add another one at x equals -32. Now, once we got these 3 doors registered to our new village, we add one at -104. Now, what this does is basically it drags out the center a bit again. So, as you can see, the center is now at -58, but it also increases the distance from the center to the outermost village, also known as the village radius. Now, this is actually important, and that's basically the trick of this farm, because the range in which a village can have a new door added to it is basically the village radius, so in this case already 45, plus 32 blocks. So what we now do is we basically add the first 11 doors to our new village. So these marked in yellow will be permanent. They won't be deleted afterwards. So basically by doing so, we shift the center again downward. So as you can see here, the center is currently decreasing until we're at x equals -34. Now, by moving the center, we also increase the radius, since this door is a fixed point. And the distance from the center to the outermost door is, of course, our radius. So, as you can see, the radius now is almost 70 blocks. And given we have current center of the village, right here, at x equals -34, or 35 for that matter, it doesn't really make a difference, we can now detect doors up to a positive x position of 66. So this village is just so huge that it can detect further than the villages which would actually be closer, namely our old villages. So what you can now do is add a village door at x equals +65. So this is out of range for all the old villages, but it is in range for our new village, despite it's further away. So this will actually be added to our new village. Now, we can continue this a bit, just adding a few more doors here. And by doing so, we basically shift the center of the village also closer to 0, 0, 0. And eventually, with the door at x equals +72, we'll have the center moved over the 0 position. So now, if we add any door on this y and z line, it will be closer to our new village than to the old villages. And that's what we actually do in the last step. We just add the next 11 doors to our village and have basically constructed a new village. So before we start with the next one, we just have to get rid of all the ones that are not highlighted here, which means simply moving the detector villages further away than about 16 blocks. So how this works in game, I'll show you now. Okay, so now we're back at the farm, and let me explain you how this works by just running you through the reset program quick. So as you down here, you have a button to initiate the reset process. I haven't put in an automatic slow mode detection, but that wouldn't be too hard to add. We basically built the same contraption as Dan in his Iron Tower video, just basically feeding the redstone signal in here somehow, which shouldn't be that much of a problem. So what happens when you press this button is you get a signal out on these two lines, basically sending all these villagers up here, which keep the actual villagers loaded. We'll send them back out here, so everything here gets deleted. And basically this takes about 1 minute, so yeah, there will be a delay stage before the actual program starts. So again, this contraption here with the Ars knowledge is basically just good for locking the reset process. So once you've pressed this button and the reset process has not finished yet, you can't press it again. Well, you can press it again, but it won't do anything except for sending these guys out. So yeah, maybe I should lock that as well. Okay, so what this does is once this torch gets activated, it gives a pulse through here, basically turning off this torch for once and allowing this hopper timer here to work. So this will create a delay of about 1 minute or maybe 2. Not quite sure at the moment. At least it's sufficient to delete the villagers here. And then basically it will be locked again. Yeah. So then moving up, we got another Ars knowledge just to basically keep the state when this one switches, which will then basically release this hopper timer, and this is the actual timer for the reset process. So this will have a cycle time of something about 3 minutes. So it's basically just 3 stacks of items in here. And the great thing is you don't have to change the number of items in here if you change the size of the farm. So if you stack this further on top of each other, currently has 4 layers with 32 villages each. Yeah, you basically don't need to bother about changing these timings. Except maybe if you go really super high up, you might have to slightly change them, just due to the redstone delay, basically. It needs to travel downward. But actually, it shouldn't be required. Yeah. So basically what this does, every time this cycles through, it gives out a 2-tick pulse, which runs along this red process line. And I'll just show you what it does here. So first of all, it goes all the way back here. Yeah, you can see it below here and into this tower. And basically what we'll do is, just like in the Iron Towers video, you can see that this one will be moved out. So this hopper will send out an item here. At the same time, there's a dropper right here, so the item doesn't need to travel all the way in front here to activate this one. So this will be spit in here. And just activate this one, granting sky access to this bottommost door here at x equals -65, as we just seen in the spreadsheet. So when this thingy reactivates, actually these pistons here will all be retracted. So it will actually have sky access. And that's actually the second part I will explain you a bit later. So let's first of all see how this is running further to add a village. Now, again with tons of delay, it goes to the front here, a bit back. In there, it just feeds in here, a 2-tick pulse again. Here a bit delayed for sending in a villager. And basically doing the same trick here, also granting sky access to the first door. At the same time, all this stuff right here is just good for sending in the corresponding detector villager. So this one is actually quite important to place it exactly at x equals -47, or of course you can shift the whole farm, but the center here is at 0, 0, so just for easier reference, this x equals -47. And this one is just in range to detect these 2 doors here. So nothing else, just these 2 doors, and basically all the way down here when he's at this position. So yeah, we'll then detect the next 2 doors, the 33 and 32 door, negative in each case. While he's detecting this, the redstone signal already travels further. Now going to the x equals -104 door, and feeding in a 2-tick pulse, shifting these blocks again. These would be retracted. Again, this villager here will be moved in, and we're at the -104 door. So next, the signal travels a bit further. Now again, back to this kind of double tower here, because this actually serves as 2 stages. Again, for the other stage, now now we'll actually add these first 11 final village doors here. And also moving in the villager that would be positioned right here. So currently it's over here, of course, because it needs to keep these villages loaded. So yeah, this one will theoretically be moved in each time it gets a signal here, but since it's already back there, it doesn't really matter. So yeah, it will just stay there and basically until you hit the reset button. Yeah, so once these doors have been added, we've shifted the center close enough to the origin, so to 0, 0, that we can now actually add the doors back here. So this is where the line goes next. So at x equals plus 65, again, of course, adding the doors down here. And these are actually just opened due to some redstone signal, so they're all aligned along the x-axis, of course. Yeah, just adding one door after another, and that's actually why it's important to align the farm in the correct direction, because yeah, the way the game adds doors, it starts at the most negative x position and then goes to the positive x position, and then it iterates that for negative c to positive c. Yeah, so that's why it's important to align it that way, or you could actually build in another orientation. Basically, if this one was facing to positive c, it should work as well, but better be safe than sorry. Yeah, so these doors will be added. And then, let me get back up here just to show the redstone. Yeah, it just has again a rather huge delay. In this case, we need a large delay, a bit larger than between the other stages, because this villager will usually already been in there when you activate it, except for the first door. Yeah, and so this one will detect it a bit faster. But if these doors over here have not been detected yet, the system will fail. So each case, when we are about to go to one of the final doors, there will be a bit bigger delay. So anyways, it will then add the village doors starting from this one, going all the way back. And this actually works to add them to a new village. I mean, for the first one, it obviously works, since there are no other villages in range. But for the second one, we'll also do, since the center will be shifted to slightly above the middle of the farm. So this is x equals 0 here. And so the center will be somewhere around this place, so a bit further than x equals 1. Yeah, so this is added, and basically what happens next is, yeah, the red signal comes in here, goes into this tower, and then there's also a delay stage now with 4-tick repeaters, since we don't need a 2-tick pulse anymore. This is basically a bit too much probably, but better be safe than sorry. And this kind of temporary reset line will then send a signal to all the villagers down here except for the ones in the final villages. So this tower won't receive a signal from this line, and the front part, so the, everything that is above these gold blocks, won't be affected, or the corresponding villager right here. Yeah. However, the one back here, for example, will get a pulse on his rail, basically sending them all out, and then basically we just need to wait for a minute for all the temporary doors here to decay, and we'll have a perfect 22 village door centered around x equals 0. So then, after some more time has passed, just a little buffer, this clock here will send out the next pulse. So it's just all a timing issue, basically, from this clock, repeating this process all over again. Now, one thing to mention, these villagers, especially this one, has to be aligned exactly at -15 as well, because it's basically a kind of counterpart to the one I've already shown you over here at 47. Since this one may only detect doors up to this point. So if it would detect these as well, these wouldn't be removed and the whole process would probably fail. So make sure this one is aligned correctly. The others are just, well, they have to be in reach, and everything else is not that important. So you can shift these lines by a few blocks, just as you like. So this basically continues until the first floor is completed, and then the actually interesting redstone kicks in. So this is all the redstone that you see here. For every tower, it's basically the same, except for some spacing issues. Yeah, so what happens? You get a pulse in here. It will again cycle this stuff through here, whether it be the double piston thingy or the single piston one. It's basically just the same. So this one will be activated when creating the last village on this floor. So this will shortly turn off and send the item into this hopper, creating a redstone pulse, which will then just basically spit an item, the secondary item, into this hopper here and activating the first doors again. But at the same time, this signal also travels downwards. So what this does is basically it turns off all these RS knowledges here. It goes into all of them, turning them off. However, only the bottommost one will be deactivated in the first part. And once this one is already deactivated before the pulse arrives, then this one will also be deactivated, since the bottom RS knowledges will always keep the ones above activated. So just through this half-slab wire, this basically serves as a one-way signal line and also leading it up. And so basically the delays are chosen such that this one will already be reactivated before the signal arrives down here, deactivating this one. This one will be deactivated already in the first place, but basically when we shift to the second floor, this one will be deactivated, while the other two stay activated. And basically an activated RS knowledge means that these pistons will retract and grant sky access to all the doors below. And then just at some point cut off. So when we're going to the second layer, so this villager will be moved in, so this one will stay here, the others will go back and forth all the time, just the same procedure as I already explained. But now these doors here, actually I should explain that the temporary doors here, they will be blocked off from sky access by these extended pistons here, so see they won't have sky access even if this is open. So basically, this villager here, when it's moved in, it would be in range to detect these doors, but they're blocked from sky access, so we'll only detect the ones on the second layer. Then this basically proceeds through all the layer, shifting to the next one, and so on, and that actually makes it super tileable, because you could just add another layer on top. Basically, you just have to shift the roof here, the complete roof. You just have to shift it up by a few blocks. And that would be essentially everything. And just also pull up this wire here again, just repeating the same pattern from down here. So the topmost layer is a bit different. Then it's just extending this all the way up. So this is essentially the whole trick. Then we just need to somehow stop this clock and unlock the reset process again. And this is basically done through this contraption here. So when an item arrives in the last hopper here, it will cause a redstone signal to be emitted here. And now if we also have the uppermost RS knowledge deactivated, so it's really the last row has been created, then we'll send a signal through here. This is just, if it's, Now then this signal will turn off. This one will also turn off, so this one will be able to give a signal, just as it's giving right now. I was confused. I just sent it through pulse shortener, unlocking this delay timer, just giving the last village a bit time to be trimmed again, so for the temporary doors to be removed. But at the same time, there will be actually a second line bypassing this thingy, which will already deactivate this clock here. In the world download, we'll have this line added. For some reason, it's missing here. Probably an old version. And so after this delay, everything will be unlocked again just by going down here and basically switching this RS knowledge to the state it's currently in, and also doing basically the same thing over here. This is actually just to send back all the temporary villagers in case they haven't been sent back. It's actually not really required. So let's have a look again at the spawn rates of this farm, because this currently has 128 villagers, as said, but it could be easily expanded. You can actually also expand it in this direction, the C direction, However, you would have to slightly change the redstone bit and add additional detector villagers. So I recommend building it this way because it's already fairly big. The extension from the outermost door on this end to the outermost door on this end is slightly below 180 blocks. It's, I think, 176. Yeah, actually, you can go back in the video a bit and look in the table. That's written. So as you can see, it spawns quite a decent amount of Iron Golems, despite the spawning floors are far from perfect. So this could be lined a bit better if you maybe change the spacing between floors a bit. You can actually change the spacing just as you like. So you can't reduce it because you need the redstone between here and then again the block to place the doors onto. And conveniently, you can also deactivate the hoppers here by redstone torch, which should reduce lag a bit if I'm not completely wrong. Yeah, and this is basically it. So, as I said, feel free to change the spacing here if you can optimize the spawn platforms a bit. By doing so, this is actually just a really quick demo setup. And yeah, I hope you like it. As I said, link to Dan's video of the Iron Towers within the description, as well as a world download with a few notes to read up again. Okay, so this has been Ragu42, and I'm out.